What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Served on the Rocks. My name is Charlie Sardelli, and I'm here with
Jameson Amaros.
Oscar Ibarra.
And we got another awesome episode planned for you guys today.
The tripod is back, baby.
It's back. Yeah, JMO, how was the vacay? I see you took a little bit home with you.
Oh, yeah, and I will not let it go. Have you guys looked outside lately?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
As you can see with the
degrees. Yeah, it's cold, and it's cold in here.
Bro, so fun story. We left Costa Rica. That's where I was, by the way, if you guys watched last week's episode. Gallivanting. Kind of Jurassic Park. I get the confusion. We left. It was 93 degrees.
Wow.
And I was on a beach. I got home at like 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning. 7 degrees, 5 inches of snow. Fucking no thanks.
Yeah, no.
I don't know how you people live here. If you guys want to sell your house and move out of Colorado, maybe to Costa Rica, I'll sell your house here. And I've got agents that I met while I was down there. They'll sell your house in Costa Rica.
Perfect.
Just throwing it out there.
Just networking everywhere, damn.
Yep.
Everywhere. Yeah. I like it.
Exactly. No, it's good to be back. I missed you guys.
Missed you too, bud.
We did miss you.
And we got our stack guy back, so you know.
Yeah, we left 2 ADD guys here. We were looking at computers. We're like, how does he remember this crap? Like 5 minutes ago. Yeah, that was us.
Yep, that was us.
Real estate wise, I have it locked in, but
Rain Man, baby.
Yeah, if I read something 5 minutes later, I'm like, crap. Did I take notes?
Yep.
Yeah,
well,
so
guys, and remember,
glad to have you back.
We do a new episode every week, so remember, like, follow, subscribe to get updates on our new episodes. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, pretty much all the major streaming platforms. So go ahead, drop us a subscribe and a like, and we'll give you the best information that we can.
Yeah. If you guys want to reach us, phone number 303-578-0263. That'll be down on the screen below. Make sure you guys put that on your phones. Call, text, wherever.
303 or 720?
303, baby.
Okay. I had 720 for some reason.
It's 303.
I've been giving out the wrong.
303. That's probably why you haven't been getting.
Sorry.
303. We kept it old school. 303. And then the email address, we're also going to throw that on the bottom of the screen for you guys. RESOTR. So Real Estate Served on the Rocks. RESOTR at themilehighperspective.com.
And we have a lot of fun stuff coming to that YouTube channel, guys.
Yep.
We're gearing up to do a launch. We're going to have a lot of content on there, from community spotlights to more information around real estate. So
maybe a get ready with me in the morning with Oscar Ibarra.
Yes.
Whoa. Yes. Let's do it. I don't have hair anymore, so it got 20 minutes out of the...
I do want to do one of those where it's like a get ready with me and you talk to the camera, except mine's like 37 seconds of me brushing my beard. And that's it.
Just ASMR.
This is it. And then, all right, well, I'm ready for the day.
My wife does, she likes to do all natural stuff, right? So she has this all natural product that she does.
Yeah.
It's called Lit and Fink, but she does oils for me. So I'm saying,
Ooh, beard oil is
Yes, it is.
and then I'll forget to comb it. It's just, I have to go back and brush it.
To get it back down. Absolutely. Well, everybody, we got an interesting bourbon here for you today. We wanted to keep it on the trail of, hey, if anybody was to walk into a store, can they get this bourbon?
And on top of that, I mean, we don't want to rate stuff we know. I mean, Jameson knows this one. I don't.
Yeah.
And we don't want to rate just good stuff.
I actually know. I lied. I've never had this one.
Okay.
I've had Old Grand Dad Bonded, which, not to give anything away, fantastic. It's also $31 versus $21. This is, you walk in, if you can't afford this at a liquor store,
should be drinking.
Reevaluate some life choices.
Yeah, if you're looking for the plastic bottle, you might need to join a group.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Well, now that we have you back, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off, J-Mo. Tell us a little bit about Old Grand Dad.
All right, well, Old Grand Dad High Rye Mash Bill. It's named Old Grand Dad because it was actually created by the grandfather who created Jim Beam.
Okay.
So they essentially used the same mash bill and recipe, and as it got filtered down and passed down from generation to generation in the Beam family, James Beam eventually made his own whiskey, called it Jim Beam, which you guys all know, right? But this Old Granddad has stayed pretty specific and close to the original recipe. It is a high rye mash bill, which we did take a sneak peek of this, and when we say high rye, they use more rye in their grain cuts when they make this bourbon than other bourbons.
Yeah, so this
total
is actually,
opposite from...
I was going to say
Yes.
opposite of last week's.
Yes,
for sure.
exactly.
So I'm excited to see that contrast.
So I'm assuming you know, it's 40%, so it's not a high proof, but you're gonna have a little fire to it, I think.
And they said this was Basil Hayden Sr.
Basil Hayden Senior, yeah. So basically, I mean, fun fact, like the Jim Beam or James Beam distillery, their lineage goes from Old Grand Dad to Basil Hayden, which Hayden was actually the grandson that named Old Grand Dad after his granddad. Crazy. It also went to Jim Beam. Booker was the gentleman that made Booker, which we've had before, which is absolutely fantastic. So the lineage of this whiskey is fantastic. But yeah, so we'll see. Price wise, $21,
$20,
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Super simple. You know, you cut out a couple Starbucks a week and you can afford this. No problem.
Legit.
Yeah.
You can afford a crazy night out.
If you millennials stop eating avocado toast, you can afford this bourbon.
That's yeah. If we stop eating avocado toast,
Can we not bring up stuff that I'm like, I have pet peeves about shit?
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I had avocado toast in
It's
Costa Rica, I think, every morning.
No, so we were in Vegas, right? And this place had a pretty cool avocado toast. Let me start. It was big. It was great. But it's avocado toast.
yeah.
You're gonna charge me $17 for some avocado toast?
Are they avocados from Mexico?
Yeah, probably. Well, they got so they were getting hit up by cartel, right? They were like, we're gonna stop this and blah blah blah. So they have armed guards
Oh wow.
bringing avocados into the States.
Well, I think the U.S. put up a blockade on avocados to punish the cartels in Mexico, which is why we had an avocado shortage for a little bit.
How is that? How is avocado so powerful?
Dude, it's the most random stuff. I'm telling you.
It's the good fat.
I mean, it is. It is a super.
Yeah.
Super, and it tastes great on rye toast, right? To go along with a rye bourbon at 9 a.m.
Anyway, yeah.
Oh no, sorry. I'm back to my Costa Rica vacation.
High-end avocado toast costs more than this bottle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, or damn
Facts.
close to it. That's awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and give it a taste. Of course, we got to get cheers in.
Old Grand Daddy.
Old Granddad, let's see how you taste it. It's gonna be good.
Oh.
I will say initially, it smell-wise, I don't know, it just doesn't seem as punchy, as pungent on the nose as past bourbons. Even the Larceny that we had last week, I'm not getting a lot of.
This smells like Jack.
I'm not getting a lot of.
I mean, you crack open a Jack Daniels and, you know, I might need a Coke or some ginger ale.
Oh, it was perfect. Thank you. All right. And you know what? We did take a couple sips beforehand, so the burn is going to be a little bit more.
It's not even the burn. It's like
Yeah.
it hits you.
It's
Like,
the rye.
it hits right
It's
here,
definitely
and
the
then
rye.
it lingers in the back of your tongue, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I'll give you some sour mash.
Yeah. And that's exactly. And honestly, I'm glad that we had the Larceny last week to give that comparison because obviously, you know, as you drink bourbon, you know, some have rye, some have wheat. I can definitely tell the difference in the more rye versus the more wheat. Like this one definitely has that punch that the Larceny was, I don't want to say lacking, but the Larceny was smooth. It kind of came in with the flavor and then it profile changed a little bit. You got that toffee and everything. But this one, I'm just straight getting grain. You know, it taking that sip, it almost goes straight to the back of your throat, like you said. Very little flavor up front.
Right.
But I will say that this definitely is a $20 bottle in the fact that the sweetness is there.
And you could taste it. I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm at a random hole in the wall, they don't have any good stuff, and I want some bourbon, I'll take some Jim.
Yeah.
Jim's not horrible.
Well,
And-
when you
and-
talk about a high rye mash bill, I think that's what we're tasting. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
a high rye mash bill, just for those of you that don't know, I didn't know, now I know. Most bourbons are anywhere between 5 and 10% rye. High rye can go upwards of 51%. These sit at about 37, 38%. So when you're getting that grain feeling and taste, that's what you're getting. Which this, and they say it on their website, part of their story, is built to be a cocktail.
Yeah.
So I definitely
We grabbed the lower proof. This is 80 proof. They do have a 100 proof and a 116, I believe. I'll be excited to taste those because, again, the burn or the higher proof is a flavor profile at a certain point. And you know, again, it's not like apparent, right? It's not like, oh, this tastes like cinnamon. This tastes like vanilla. It lingers and it smells, because I've seen a lot of bourbon guys like, oh, it's gasoline. It's all gasoline. And at what point does it just advertisement? You're paying for this. But no, again, I'll go back to Israelis. He's a sommelier for wine, and he says, what's a good wine for you is what tastes good for your palate. Same with bourbon. I mean, you're going to get some garbage. Some people are going to like it. Some people not. Personally, will it? I won't have it.
No, yeah.
I bring it in. I don't like it. Some people love it. It tastes like what? When you mow the lawn. Yeah. That's what it tastes like for me. It's not my cup.
Some people
is it horrible?
Wellers? Some people hate Wellers.
Yeah. And Weller to me is just, it's okay.
Yep.
I mean, I'll have larceny all day and be okay with that.
Yeah.
Even Basil hate it. It's also 80 proof. It's just a lighter bourbon. But anyway, where I'm going with all this is this in itself.
This is a bourbon I would buy for a cocktail. I would not personally sit down.
Rittenhouse is another one. It's very it's comparable, you know. And this would probably not make a good old fashioned, but it might make an okay Manhattan.
I would challenge that. This would make a good old fashioned at a bar, not at your house. And the only reason I say that is because they're going to use simple syrups. They're going to use more of those things that are going to play off of the sweetness. Because like we've talked about in the past, sweetness is what sells cocktails most of the time. If you talk with a mixologist, a lot of the time they're going to go to any cocktail bar, have a sip and go, why is there syrup in this? Right? And I think that is exactly what this is for.
Yeah.
At least in my experience as a bartender, this is what I would use to make those old fashions, Granddad and Coke.
Right.
Those things that
I definitely do a Granddad and Coke.
Yeah.
Whiskey soda.
Yeah. Whiskey soda. This really reminds me of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
It's a little lighter on the sour mash.
It has enough complexity that I don't think it's a Jack Daniels.
True.
Like, you know what I mean? Especially for $20.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can get a bottle of like Barnett's whiskey, I think, for $20, and it would taste infinitely worse than this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and it's good. I'm not beating it up. I'm not beating it up. Again, I think it'd make a better Manhattan.
Anything rye. High rye just make great cocktails.
I just tasted a little bit more, and it got a little sweeter.
Yeah, exactly.
Second, third time. So why I say Manhattan is because I think a Manhattan has the sweet vermouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it has a more of a bitter edge to it than an old fashioned. Old fashioned tends to stay on the milder sweet side.
Yes.
You do still have bitters, but then you have the orange zest and all that stuff. So I think this will lend itself better. And again, ryes lend themselves better to Manhattan.
Yeah, if you get a nice cube, it'll open it up a little bit.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think as that introductory bourbon, kind of as we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, I think this one's definitely above that entry tier Jack Daniels, stuff like that.
If I was in college, and this was a choice over Jack Daniels or like Burnett's vodka, I would do this all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I definitely shoot this.
I would have gotten into whiskey a lot earlier because I mean, again, for $21, I'm thinking comparing it to other $20 bottles. I haven't tasted anything that tastes like this.
So is this the Keystone Light of bourbon, or is this the Pabst Blue Ribbon?
I think this is a PBR.
Yeah.
I'd go.
I
think it's PBR.
Boy. This is
one of the best commercials for the Super Bowl, by the way.
Yeah, it was
with Sarah McLachlan.
Yeah.
Hey, Sarah McLachlan.
The wrong commercial.
That's awesome. Hey, stay tuned. One day we're gonna have a Super Bowl commercial. You watch it. I'm calling it now.
Oh, absolutely,
it's happening.
Yep.
All right. And on that note, guys, today we have a really good topic for you, especially for the consumer. With 2023, and if you've been keeping an eye on what interest rates have been doing, the market's been doing, it's all over the place, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago we were in the green and the market's hot, and now it's dropping a little bit. Something happened with the Fed, whatever happened, right?
You guys ever gone to Elitch's?
Oh yeah. Yes.
You know the Tower of Doom?
Oh yeah.
Then it goes down,
it bounces
back up and down. That's
kind of
I feel like that's where we're at.
Yeah. So our goal with this episode is we're gonna kind of tell you how to navigate this market when it comes to offers as a buyer and as a seller. Now, with that being said, we are going to kind of start out on the buyer side, only because there's a little bit that goes into it for you as the consumer, as a buyer, than you would say as a seller. So, Jameson, what's something that
and again, we're gonna go into it assuming we're forecasting that it's going to do the same thing last year, right? With multiple offers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this is definitely not a forecast what's going to happen.
Yes.
This is a forecast if it goes back to where it was, and kind of what the bouncing,
Yeah.
what you might run into as a consumer, and then what we're going to be seeing.
Absolutely. And the whole point of it is, like I just said, we saw it got hot in 2 weeks. People dropped below 6, rushed. We had houses on the market that were getting 14 to 20 offers again. How do you navigate that as a buyer, right? So, Jameson, you had a couple examples that you wanted to go over on the buyer side.
Well, I think it's important as a consumer in general in the housing market, right? Whether you guys are looking to buy or sell, to understand a semblance of a roadmap. Like, how do I get from point A to point B? How do I get from a consumer that wants to purchase a house to actually buying a house? How do I get to be a consumer that wants to list their house to actually selling the house? And in order to do that, it's important to understand why we're talking about it now. So, very quick overview. I just want to give people just an idea of what we're looking at in the market.
Yep.
If you've been on Facebook and you have friends that are realtors, I guarantee one of you has seen something that said, the time is now to buy. Buyers are coming back into the market. 37 offers, 75 showings, blah, 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 which was true, right? But it was true because we saw interest rates dip back in the high 5s, right? I think we got down almost a 5.75, 5.8, somewhere around there. And there was all this pent-up demand from people that didn't purchase for the last quarter and a half that they jumped, right? And good on them to get in and see that the market was hot, but it brought a ton of people in. Now, I just looked at it today, right? We lost a whole bunch of points. We're on average high 6s, right? So almost a percent swing. What do you think that did? Well, we went from a 28% increase in mortgage applications 2 weeks ago, week over week, to a 7 to 8% decrease this week alone. Which now means those buyers that are frantic may not be, right? The reason I bring it up is our job is to give you guys as a consumer a roadmap and how to navigate potential pitfalls, hurdles, all that kind of stuff. What happened was, for the most part, we looked at this data back in like August. We were going on the month-over-month consumer price index information, which essentially just said from September of 2023, how did that compare to where we're at increase in inflation September 2022? And those numbers were all 0.6, 0.7, 0.5, 0.8% year over year in that specific month, right? So as we looked at that data, we saw two things. One, over the next 6 months, we were going to go against higher rates of increase from 2022, okay? The second piece we looked at was we looked at inflation data trending downward, which is good, right? So we assume as those reports come out, then the bond market's going to react positively and interest rates are going to get better, which we saw happen in October, November, December, and January. Well, what happened was, and again, I'm not an expert at this portion of it because I'm not in the government, things got misinterpreted a little bit, and they essentially changed how they are now measuring inflation, which was not really foretold by anybody else. So if you guys follow somebody, dude's a genius.
Whoa, the government was wrong?
The government just didn't give us all the info, right?
And even economists get it wrong.
Well, but they're going off of the info coming from the World Economic Forum and the government, so on and so forth. Barry Habib, I know you watch him probably, right? Genius of a mortgage lender. He does an update that's fantastic. If you guys want to take a look at it, get really in depth. He's been pretty spot on over these last 6 months what interest rates are going to do. He got thrown through a loop because the way they interpreted the inflation report this month was different than they have for the last year. So the bond market was like, wait a second, what? And then all of a sudden the bonds reacted negatively, and you saw this massive jump in interest rates from a 5.875 to the high 6s within a matter of a couple of days, which has now cooled off demand. Will that continue? We're not really sure. We're still looking at spring and early summer as a chance to recover. If that happens and buyer demand picks up, I think we'll get back into some multiple offer situations, higher demands, still low supply. And that's why we want to talk about what we want to talk about today.
So the stat that we had talked about before, there was at the, I think it was 2 episodes ago, we had a 28% increase in mortgage demand. And then of last week, we had an 8% fallout. So we're still up 20%. So that's kind of numbers we got to keep an eye on moving forward. And what does that mean moving forward as well?
So, I mean, like Jameson was saying, moving forward, as that market adjusts and as people are rearing and sitting back ready to go, you're going to run into situations where you might find a house that you really love that, you know, maybe a month ago you could put an offer in on and you might be one of two. But if we get back to this, you know, quote unquote healthy point where the market's doing good, we're back below 6, you could run into a situation where you have multiple offers to compete against as a buyer.
Yep.
So what are some things that they should be prepared for as a buyer if they run into that situation?
Okay, let's do this, if you don't mind. Let's take it. The stat man. This guy knows his stuff. This guy's been in the market way too freaking long. I've forgotten more stuff that I can remember. But let's throw a scenario because he's good.
Didn't Lil Wayne have a rap about that kind of lyrics saying, I forgot more lines? Oh, that was Kanye. He forgot more lines than you guys ever wrote.
So, again, Mr. Buyer, me.
Yep.
Mr. Amaros, I am looking for a house right now. I have to sell my house. I'm going in. I'm going to have about 20% down. This is where I want to live. I don't want to spend more than about $700 here in Castle Rock. What am I going to be up against?
Right now, if rates continue to drop a little bit, you'll probably be up against some multiple offers.
Okay.
And in that scenario, I think the biggest thing to do is be prepared with the right expectations, right? Because, and again, no offense to you, Mr. Buyer, but you guys aren't in this every single day. So we kind of have an adage that the general public, when it comes to like specific industries, are like 3 or 4 months behind, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's fault. That's why we're here, right? Because we want to do that job for you and educate you. But you have gotten used to and seeing things like, oh, my house has been on the market for 97 days, or I've got, one offer, or hey, my buddy just bought a house and they got $50,000 off the purchase price. That may not be the case. So my suggestion is your 20% down is great. Okay. Be prepared to expand your search.
Okay.
Just be prepared. And when I say expand, I don't just mean geographically.
Yep.
I mean monetarily as well, right? Because, for example, if I live in Castle Rock, okay, but let's say I want to go 20 minutes south to Monument, and my commute extends 20 minutes, but the same house in Castle Rock that's going to have 7, 8, 9 offers on it, that's going to get me into a bidding war on that $700,000 house now may cost me $700 plus $30,000 out of pocket because I have to cover an appraisal gap. I can get the same size house, potentially bigger, for $650,000, get seller concessions up to, in your case, we could get up to 9% of the purchase price in seller concessions because you have 20% down. Now you got a lower interest rate, you got a lower monthly payment, the house is cheaper, and what did it cost you? Yeah, you might not be in your exact neighborhood, but if it's the commute and you're flexible, cool. Obviously, there's other factors, right? School districts, so on and so forth. But depending on what your criteria is, when I say expand search geographically, yes, here's the other option. Let's say you do want to stay in Castle Rock because of the schools specifically. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, let's take a look at what you need in a house, and maybe those wants, needs, and must-haves change a little bit. But if we can get you into a house that has less competition, but I can get a seller concession, or we can get something off of the purchase price that you can then turn around and add in addition to the house, or refinish the floors, or finish a basement to give you more space, and it costs you the same, if not a little bit less, maybe that's something that we look at as well.
Okay. And explain to me, what's an appraisal gap?
So an appraisal gap essentially means that the bank is not going to loan you more than what the house is valued at, right? Mm-hmm. So if you spend $700,000 on a house and the bank's loaning you $700,000, but it's only worth $650,000, they're only going to loan you what that house is up to. And what we saw last spring was people would buy a house at $700,000, offer $750,000, cover that $50,000 in cash. It's a lot of money, right? Something to consider, because as we start to see those multiple offer scenarios, we see those appraisal gaps come up a little bit more. The interesting thing, and this is a complete side note, it took appraisers about 6 months to catch up to the market the last time this happened. I'm curious to see if it's going to take the same amount of time, because we went from some houses going way over list and people having to cover appraisal gaps to all of a sudden not.
Yeah.
And side of the side note, when that happens, and this happened when the recession happened, the catch up part's not the catch up part into the where it's coming down is not the issue. It's on them, and that skews the market. It's when we're coming back around that becomes a big issue, because now all the appraisers want to be Mr. Superman, and I have one right now that he was nitpicking. He was basically being an inspector.
Right.
And he's not an inspector. He's an appraiser. Apples to apples, buddy. Don't go nitpick the property. That's a whole different story. And now they're that, right? They're gun shy. They don't want to over appraise, and now they look at me, I'm doing my job. That really hinders. Case in point. Yeah. the property up in Hugo.
Yep.
The last one, I promise, I'm not doing Hugo anymore. $100,000 under.
Yeah.
Wow.
With comps.
Right.
And he was asking ridiculous things, and he killed the deal.
Yeah.
So now that brings up a great point. So let's say that does happen, and you're in an adjusting market. How do you, as a buyer, how do you prepare for that? How do you deal with that if you do get that appraisal that comes in 100,000 under? Now you got to kind of switch it up, and yeah, it's better because you're not going to spend as much. But what do you recommend that as a buyer you start looking at in that scenario?
Well, it's case by case, right? Because if you really want the house, then we start negotiations again, or what's written inside the contract. That's important. If you have an agent that just knows the aggressive points on getting you the offer, appraisal gap, escalation clauses. Escalation clauses where you say if there's another offer on the table, bona fide offer, we will beat that offer by X amount of dollars up to a capped amount. Some people don't even put a capped amount. And then it depends on the verbiage. If you're all in and you don't know how to navigate that, because there's dates and deadlines in there. We could nitpick an offer. I could put in whatever I want, and I'll still have some outs. I won't reveal my secrets because I know there's a bunch of agents out there that I'm going to compete against, and I don't give a crap at this point. I'm at that point of the year.
I like it.
You know?
I like it.
So it's a multifaceted contract. We're not attorneys, and as a managing broker and coach of agents, a lot of managing brokers will say, don't put anything in additional provisions. I say, if you do, you watch what you say, and if a second grader can't read and understand it, you're getting too fancy. We're not attorneys.
Yeah.
Make it easy to read, to the point.
So basically in that scenario, you want to make sure that you are communicating with your agent regularly and like Jameson said, talking about things that you may be willing to give up, things that you may be willing to take on.
It's give or take.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Every
Really
time market shifts, right? The big paradigm that needs to change for whether it's buyers or sellers is your expectations on where the market is.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest conversation to have, isn't it?
And think about it, right? We went from an inflated market in January of 2022 to complete halt August of 2020.
Hit the brakes hard.
Yeah.
To now, 2 weeks ago, 35 offers, 75 showings, so on and so forth.
And it might change tomorrow.
So normally a real estate cycle, it's every 3 to 4 years that it'll start to balance out depending on where interest rates are. As people move up, they upsize, they downsize. The population gets older, so you've got people downsizing, they move out. Population gets larger, millennials want to buy houses. And it's normally a very predictable pattern that we look for. These last 2 years have been anything but. And I think now we're seeing that the resonance or the ripple effect of artificially holding down rates so long that as you let it go, to me, honestly, it's almost like, I wish I had a freaking popsicle stick, but it's like holding down a popsicle stick or a lever or, even better, the little door springy things. Stop doors from hitting the wall, right? Yeah. So normally, if you let that go, it just kind of swings nice and slow. We're in it where if I pull that back and let it go, it is so hard to catch it where it's at. And I think that's important because as a buyer or a seller, having the right agent, right? Which you guys talked about last week and making sure you have the right questions asked and good line of communication is paramount. But understanding that you could list your house today at rates of 6.875. And if they stay that way for 3 weeks, you will not get a sniff unless you lower the price.
Yep. 100%.
Now, let's say you lower the price in 3.5 weeks, $25,000, right? I think the average price that we dropped houses this last quarter and a half was like 5%. Was the average, right? So let's say you drop 5%. Well, what if the next week the rates tank to, in a good way, to 5.875? You know what's going to happen? All of a sudden, you're going to have 47 showings, right? So you have to understand going into it, that is how volatile of a market it is. And from a buyer's perspective, being able to be flexible in what you're looking for, really lock down very specifically your budget. Understand what you can afford monthly because the house prices will change unless you get a new job. Your budget will not.
Yes.
So if you can stay in that parameter and go, all right, you know what? School's not important to me. Single or not, I'm either single, young married couple doesn't have kids yet. I can afford to move 20, 30 minutes away more than what I wanted to. But I've got open enrollment. I'm okay with making that, blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, you know what? I'm okay. I wanted to finish basement, but if I can get a house that doesn't have as much action, it's $40,000 less. I can use that money I saved to finish the basement afterwards. Okay, cool. I'm okay with putting in some elbow grease, hiring contractors, whatever it looks like. just be prepared, right?
Right.
That's the biggest thing I can tell you as a buyer is be flexible and be prepared, because these next 6 to 10 months are going to be a roller coaster as far as what housing prices do.
Be prepared. I think another word is be, or from flexible, be able to pivot with the market, pivot with the market. So what's it doing, and pivot per transaction.
If you can be Barry Sanders in the open field, you'll be fine.
Done. And the knowledgeable agent part is he'll guide you. If you have a great agent, you're probably, if you know the guy and you have a great lender, and days of lock. How many days can you lock the loan? So if you come in and you lock it at 5.5, how many days can I do it? 60, 90 is it going to cost me? But if you lock it at 5.25, can you do a relock if it drops? But at 5.25, lock it, and then if it goes up to 7, you still have that 5.25 ready to close.
Yep.
And then you don't have to pivot as much.
Well, and that's a great point that a lot of people may not know as well, is you have the opportunity to lock your rate in. And that's why when you see it drop the way that it does, that's why everybody comes running, because if you are aware of that, you can lock yourself in. So if in 2 weeks it changes, like Oscar was saying.
Well, normally a lender will have, one-time float down options, right?
Mm-hmm.
The funny part about that is over the last, 5-6 months, I've completely, it's been radio silence on lock-in shops.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that term in 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? We heard that nothing but lock-in shops starting in May as interest rates went up. So again, it's just another example of how quickly this can shift. And buying and selling a house is not a car. You can't do it in a day. So the chances of you listing a home and some weird shit happening over that 30 to 45 days it's listed, plus the 30 days that it closes, that's different, right?
Yep.
I mean, and we're not even touching on the fact that we could start looking at, if we do hit a recession, what's the one way to combat recession? Eliminating jobs, right? So that was another bullshit report, 510,000 jobs added. That was horse shit. Like, that wasn't actually a real number, and yet somehow it affected, that's why rates went down.
Right.
And they're like, oh, just kidding, we actually counted it differently. Stupid, right? So just control what you can control. That's the biggest thing.
And there's it's a subjective term, recession, because technically we're in one now.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah, and what's it going to affect depends on who you ask.
This bourbon was $17 a year ago.
Yeah,
It's 22 now.
damn, we're in an increase.
What is that? What is that?
And the percentages, right? 0.7%. In a grand scale, it affects, but in a smaller one, it doesn't, right? So, as defined, we may be in a recession. Does it affect real estate? Well, does it affect the job sector, right? The employment sector. As long as we're healthy and strong there, inflation's inevitable. You'll see what that does.
Over-communicate.
As long as jobs are strong, the real estate market tends to stay somewhat afloat.
Yep, and it's going to be, we've talked about this on previous episodes, right? It's very micro market.
Yeah.
The West right now, the Western United States, is getting crushed in home prices. 100%. So you see it all the time, where somebody in the East Coast and Midwest is like, what are you talking about? I got 95 offers in one weekend.
Yep.
Great. You guys went up 110% in home value over 10 years. We went up 600%. It's a law of averages. At the end of the day, anything cyclical is going to come back to what I would call homeostasis.
Yep.
It's going to level out, because it's a battle of supply and demand. So that's all it is. Colorado, we're lucky. We have a very robust economy. But even still, we've seen some of the steepest price declines, home value declines within the Western United States.
And different states have different factors too.
Yeah.
Taxes. Texas, low home prices, but their taxes are ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and what we're seeing now too is, especially with Colorado, is how many of these new build homes bought, and built, and they had these prices at these elevated appraisals, right? So now their prices are higher, they're sitting on this inventory, and guess what? They're not going to sit on that.
Nope.
So what are they going to do? They're going to drop the prices on the houses, right?
Give incentives.
Exactly.
All day.
If you guys are looking in Crystal Valley, Castle Rock, by the way, just to throw this out there as a tidbit, D.R. Horton has some great homes in the $500,000 to $700,000 range. They have 80 plus homes to sell that they are just sitting on.
Yep.
Do you think that if you are working with an agent and you went over to that neighborhood and said, hey, I know this house is worth, or you've listed it at $640, can I get it for $600 with a couple of these options added on? The chances of them saying no are very slim.
Exactly. Oh, they play hardball.
No, they don't.
Up north, they did. I don't know if it's just because it was up north, but I got them at the end of the day. But they were like, no. And then they
Just
call
say
me
it in face, bro.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like, sorry, I forgot I have 107 of these to sell.
Well, exactly.
Right.
That's my whole point. Is
and another side note on the side note of the side note. Can we just keep doing
We're
side note?
almost at a square.
You know,
triangle at this point.
we live in Crystal Valley, so give us a call.
Exactly.
And Richmond's there too. And actually, they
Richmond,
start
DR, Century.
800 to 900. They start, but they're building some ridiculous houses. The house on the hill. I was like, can we move into that? I was like,
Hey, check
no. I'm not
the
moving.
Colorado real estate guy on TikTok. I got a couple of home tour videos.
Oh yeah, some of them. Yeah, he did one. Was it Richmond or DR?
I did Taylor Morrison and I did Toll Brothers.
Taylor Morrison's a good too. Toll Brothers is one of my
Yep.
favorites too,
Yeah.
and they're nice homes. The bathroom one that you did,
Oh yeah,
I think was massive.
that was absolutely.
so as a buyer, basically, you know, it's communication, be able to pivot, and ultimately make sure that you have an agent that can stay on top of the market and knows
Mhm.
what it's going to do, or can even look at projections of the market.
So, and when we say pivot on the transaction, it might make sense you not using, understanding. The agent needs to understand that maybe you don't use your 20%,
Right.
but you're going to cover some appraisal gap and see what the difference is in price point and
Monthly
what
payment, yep.
your payment's going to be, because you'll win that house.
Exactly.
Write the right offer, and maybe you'll get a little bit of MI, and it's a difference of $50 at the end of the day.
Yep.
So that's what I mean, pivot per transaction outside of pivoting with the market.
Absolutely. Just be okay with change and
Yep.
and
Adapt or die.
I like it.
I know.
Adapt or die.
I was just going to have one, but you poured me like a halfie, so I'm
Ooh,
for another
okay.
half
No,
one. And
Get it going. I mean, you got to do teach.
There's no rules here.
yeah, I mean,
There's no rules.
Okay. All right. So, you know, with going over the buyer portion, obviously that's one half of a transaction, right? And a lot of people would think that, oh, if you're selling your house and you have 20 offers that come through, you're just sitting pretty and you're happy and you're sitting back. We all know that that's not how it goes, right?
Correct.
Because like Oscar said, each offer that you get is going to be specialized and attuned to that purchase.
Yes.
So,
And to that buyer.
yeah, exactly. So now what we're going to do is kind of go over how to deal with it as a seller, because it can get very stressful, especially when you have all these different offers that may be asking for different concessions or different, you know, coming from different programs with lenders. So there's a lot to navigate in that.
not only that, it comes with experience too. What has happened in the past with these kind of offers, because the shiniest one may not be the best one.
Yep.
I've had a lot of agents come in and give us all the stuff we want to see, appraisal gaps, inspection, but they know the ins and outs of the offer, and they'll put me under contract just to see if it appraises, and then they use another part of the contract to bail, and now they just had me off the market for 15 days. A seasoned agent will see that, catch that, and say, okay, but I'm going to counter and hold you accountable to this. You can't bail on something else if this doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And that's where the seasoned agent comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest point that we want to get across from a buyer's perspective or a seller's perspective is, and again, we hammer this point, but I think it's very, very important. If I am helping a buyer as a realtor, my fiduciary duty is to protect that buyer and do anything and everything in that buyer's interest. On the flip side, if I'm a listing agent, my fiduciary duty is to the seller, and I am there to protect the seller's interests and the seller's interests only. So I think as you go through and say, okay, well, if it's a seller, then I'm going to start looking at these multiple offers. How many, and you've seen this a bunch of times, Oscar, right? Somebody comes in, you give them the offers. Let's say you listed a $600,000 house, you get 10 offers. The highest offer is $700,000.
Yep.
Right? The seller's going to go, I want the $700,000.
Yep.
Is that always the best offer to take?
Nope.
So walk us through what you look for. So if you have that scenario, what do you and the seller go through to make sure they understand that, yes, there is a monetary standpoint, but it may not be the best for their situation?
Right. If someone comes in $700,000 and that's it, okay. One, if I'm the listing agent, I know what the house is going to appraise at. So what are you going to do to bridge that gap? That's where appraisal gap comes in.
Yep.
Also, how long are you going to keep me off the market for inspection? I want the minimal time for everything. I want to be able just to say, we're going to close and or wait for your loan to come in, and that needs to be shortened. A lot of agents like to come in and say, okay, well, we're going to do loan. There used to be called loan commitment. Now it's the loan terms deadline. 4 days before closing. No, you're going to give me 4 days, up to 4 days before the day of closing, be able to pull out on this.
Yep.
No, I need at least a week before. I need to make sure that your client's solid. So I've also vet the agent or the lender. I call them and say, how strong is your client? What's the DTI? What's the LTV? All that stuff coming in. I know most of that stuff, and how competent their lender is. If I can't get a hold of their lender, that's a red flag. Come back to the seller, say, look, one, the agent was okay communication. I haven't been able to vet their lender. That might be a problem. Okay, these dates and deadlines are okay, but what are they going to do of inspection? What are they going to do with appraisal gap? And all that has to match. And then earnest money. If they came in with minimal earnest money, if earnest money is negotiable. It's usually 1% of the purchase price. Usually, but it's a negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone comes in and it's not the best offer, let's say I get the $700,000 offer and it's shaky, but someone comes in at $680 and says, look, we'll do everything fast. Loan commitment, we're already there. We'll do 2 weeks in. And you know what? After inspection, and if everything's good, my earnest money goes hard. Here's $8,000. That's a solid offer. Because if they kept me off the market for 2 weeks and pulled out, and we got to keep $8,000, my seller's gonna be happy. That's their money, and I'm not keeping a dime of it.
And then earnest money, just for the viewers at home that may not know, earnest money, just to keep it simply, is the money that you put up to show good faith that you want to continue with the transaction.
It takes the house off the market.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so we're a serious buyer. Here's my money, and that money gets placed in a trust account. Sometimes real estate firms put it in theirs. A lot of them don't like to do that, and title companies have them. And title companies have a trust account. It's a interest-bearing account, but it could only be used for holding that money. At the end of the day, if the transaction goes well, you get that money back. That's always your money.
Yeah.
It's our job as an agent to make sure we're on top of our dates and deadlines so you don't lose that money. And or if something goes south within the dates and deadlines, like inspection, we can't resolve anything. We send out a termination and an earnest money release. Everybody signs it. Title company cuts the check back to your client.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to kind of do with this here is, because we're talking about how many different things there are, the one commonality we have between all these offers are the offers themselves, right? So what I would ask both of you, if you could, and try and make it different for the viewers at home, but if you could give a buyer, or a seller, 2 things to look for in an offer, what would you prioritize? What would you say that they should talk to their agent about, or maybe even just bring it up that they look at?
So here, I'm going to expand a little bit, but I'm going to give you a pretense why. So if you're a seller and you looked at a contract to buy and sell, it's a 47 to 60 page document, right? The important pieces in there are, number 1, the dates and deadlines. Okay. Number 2, the actual offer amount. Number 3, the type of the loan. And then number 4, the additional provisions. I say that because I want to simplify it, because essentially of the 47 pages in a real estate contract, 90% of it is just re-explaining the dates and the deadlines. Right? So if I'm looking at dates and deadlines as a seller's agent, listing agent, I'm looking to make sure, and Oscar touched on this, he said loan commitment, right? So that's a great one. So loan commitment splits into 2. It's loan terms deadline and loan availability deadline. They're 2 very different things. Loan terms means that the buyer has a certain amount of time to review the loan from their lender and say, I'm good with this. And if they don't like it, they can back out and they can take their earnest money out. Okay. We like to see that as a listing agent within 5 to 7 days of going under contract, because preferably this person's been underwritten or pre-underwritten at least, gone through whatever, pay stubs, verification, so on and so forth.
And they split it up into loan availability and loan term.
Right. And loan availability is more towards close, right? But loan availability just means, did something catastrophic happen that now does not allow that person to qualify for the loan? Think job loss, job transfer, something else, right? As a buyer's agent, I like to put that as close to the closing date as possible, because I want to make sure that my client has
If you get away with 3,
if something happens.
money.
But I've had people counter me and say, hey, you know what? It's competitive. I want this loan availability deadline 10 days before close, right? Okay, cool. Then that just moves up our date. And if we want the house, cool. Loan terms, I've had some agents, good buyer's agents, try and sneak that all the way to close as well. And I will counter and say, nope, I want this 5 to 7 days out, because at this point, if you're already fully underwritten and you've got your pay stubs and you've got your W-2s and you've got everything else, you should be good, right? So when you go through the loan dates and deadlines, that is, to me, number 1, because as a seller, pay attention to that, because that gives you when the buyer can leave with no consequence. The loan, the offer amount is obviously the second most important. That's going to give you essentially their net, what the seller's going to make, right? The loan type is going to matter because if you've got conventional versus FHA versus cash versus VA, now that brings into different ways appraisals can be effective. For example, Oscar is saying about appraisal deadlines, right? We want those nice and tight. Well, if it's an FHA or a VA loan, when are appraisal deadlines?
None,
right? They can do it whenever. Your appraisal might not come until 27 days.
and we put them into just to have a set date that we're going to agree to try to get them by this date.
Yep.
But the contract to buy and sell states if it's VA or FHA, those dates don't really matter.
Yep.
And it's to give the lender a benchmark of where we should have them done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then if you go to additional provisions, to me, that's the fourth important because that is now going to detail any contingencies outside of the actual constructed contract.
How are you going to stand out?
Exactly. How are you going to stand out?
Yeah.
Or they may be some different things, right? So
Or what are you going to omit?
I put in mine that the buyer reserves the right to change the terms and conditions of any financing up until the day of close, as long as it doesn't affect the offer amount or the dates and deadlines or the ability to close a loan.
Yep.
But they sit there and say, hey, man, I'm going to put this much down more. I'm going to take something. I'm going to change my loan type. I'm going to go from VA to cash, whatever it is. It gives them an option, right? It doesn't really affect the seller, but I put it in there as protection. You can put anything you want really in additional provisions. It's not legalese. As a matter of fact, I've always been taught keep it as plain as possible and make sure people understand, right? I've done things where I say, hey, possession. My additional provision in possession is that the house will be broom cleaner better on or before the day of possession. And in order to verify, we're going to do a walkthrough the day before. Walkthroughs, yeah, they're kind of, there's not really a date or deadline for it, but if I have it in additional provisions, then at least it's there, right? So if I'm a seller and I'm saying, hey, what do I pay attention to? Dates and deadlines, because it determines when your buyers can back out, and you can either lose the earnest money or you can say, hey, they back out, I keep the earnest money. The offer itself, because that's going to depend on what your net is. The Taylor Swift song.
Taylor
played. Sorry,
Swift
excuse me.
Charlie.
Hey,
He's the problem.
I had to do a post.
Oh, that is hilarious. The additional provisions and then the loan type. Those are the four that I would say. The 6-page document.
Derailed my. I was gonna say
ADHD. I apologize. I did it. It was
You did do it.
It was me.
man. It was rich in that one.
Anyway, those are my four.
Okay.
Dude, don't even ask me. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay. Well, you went over the appraisal gaps earlier. And Jameson touched on.
I listened to so much Taylor Swift on this Costa Rica radio because we were with somebody that was a massive Swiftie.
Okay.
Swiftie and Rihanna. That was it. That was all I listened to
Nice.
for like 6 straight days.
I mean, Rihanna's a good one to listen to.
I'm not saying it was bad, but that just took me back to Costa Rica. It was like,
That and the Swifties are a force to reckon with.
I'm the product.
They're changing stuff out there. Man, yeah. I mean, skin in the game, I guess. If I have to bring it back to anything that I remember besides before the Taylor Swift song, what is the buyer willing to risk to get this house?
Right.
And I think the higher the risk, the better the offer for the seller at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Just to simplify, because the contract, outside of all the stuff that Jameson said, there's intricacies of who's going to pay what, right?
Yep.
Who's going to pay for title? What title company can we use? All that, it adds up at the end of the day, and that might be the determining factor for the seller. What's gonna benefit the seller? Because if I'm the seller's side, fiduciary responsibility means you have the best interest of your client is to my seller. Same on the buy side. So it's a give and take, because he's the buyer's agent, I'm the seller's agent. We have the same end goal.
Yep.
And how can we bring it together? That's it. Without egos and all kinds of other crap that agents like to bring into the table. Finite points within the contract. If the buyer really wants this, set yourself aside from the other buyers. How much skin in the game and how confident are you with moving forward with my offer is one that I'm going to look for.
So I'll give you guys an example, right? Real world example.
I had good examples, but
An offer I received
Taylor Swift, god damn.
From Taylor Swift, ironically. I received an offer on a house, and they were on a conventional loan, and they were doing 3.5% down. Okay, they asked for $20,000 in concessions. Okay, they offered $520,000, which was the purchase price of the house. That's what we asked it for. And I looked at that, and when I was talking to my seller about it, I go, "Hey, this is actually a good thing, because it caps what they can ask for. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up accepting. And the reason I did this is because as we got to the inspection period, most of the time, people will offer concessions because it's unrealistic to ask for repairs and all this stuff to be done before the house closes.
Underwriter doesn't want to see.
You know what I mean? Underwriters,
They're not going to want to lend on a house that needs
exactly
big
so
repairs.
when somebody offered 520 with 20,000 concessions, I did the math. We looked at the contract. I said, hey, so the cap is, and this is just for you guys out there as well, right? If you're looking for seller concessions, if you're buying a house, there's a cap how much you can ask for. On a conventional loan, if it's 10% or under on the down payment, you can only ask for 3% of the purchase price in concessions. In my case, it was exactly $20,000, right? Mm-hmm. If you're 10% to 20%, you can ask for 6% of the purchase price in seller concessions. And if you're at 25% or higher, you can ask for 9%. Well, we knew this offer was already, they hit their max just by offering. So when it came time for the inspection period and they started asking for stuff, I told them straight up, we're not going to repair anything. Knowing that their option was either to let it go or they would have to come out of pocket for some of these repairs because the lender's not going to then allow for another $2,000 worth of repair items because they already ate up their $20,000 in concessions.
Yep.
A normal agent, not normal, but somebody that maybe not as informed or a little bit newer, and if you're a newer agent, this is something to look out for. Mm-hmm. Understand that when you see seller concessions, which we will continue to see, there's a cap. And if you're in a position where it's butting up against that cap, now you all of a sudden have leverage during the inspection period. If these people really want this house, or they have to renegotiate and say, okay, I actually want $15,000 in concessions and then $5,000 in repair items. From a seller standpoint, okay, I already said yes to the $20K, so you're just fudging the numbers a little bit. That's fine. If they say, well, I want 20 plus more, that's fine. The answer is no. What's their choice? They either fix it themselves, they come out of the pocket, or they walk away.
Yep.
Right? So those are just some of the little intricacies that we pay attention to as a listing agent when we're trying to sell the house and there's multiple offers. If I see somebody that's capped and I've got two offers, one's at 520 with 20,000 concessions, the other one maybe at 520, but they have a 20% down payment, so they can ask for 27 and they've only asked for 20. Yep. That's something I would bring up. Hey, these people are giving themselves room for an extra $7,000 to $10,000 in negotiation. Mm-hmm. Yes, they have 20% down, which normally people see as a stronger offer, right? But if they're at 20% down, they've only asked for 15 in concessions. We hit that inspection period, they may come at us for another 10 versus we're at 520. They've already asked for 20. They can't come out of pocket anymore. So maybe this is actually the better offer to take.
Read between the lines.
And again, at the end of the day, whether you have a loan, conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, or other, and cash, the seller's going to get cash no matter what. Mm-hmm. Understand that. So you have to also dig into that. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. FHA, guidelines. If it doesn't appraise, now that FHA appraisal is stuck with the house.
Yep.
So now you can only have conventional, but
or you have to fix everything.
Or you have to fix everything because it's chip and paint, all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. VA, another ball of wax. Conventional is usually what people lean towards, but if someone comes in with a strong FHA and they have a down payment and appraisal gap, that might just be it.
Yep.
If they're strong. So that's when a seasoned agent comes in and again, man, this old granddad may have like fueled my
rage.
I had other choices of words, but
do you want us to put on some more Taylor Swift to kind of calm?
Yes, maybe
a little more T Swift. All right.
A knowledgeable agent is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of my friends are brand new, newer, great freaking agents. The shiny agent out there that just knows how to do marketing and just regurgitates shit that they get from their title company and looks pretty and closing in heels. Ladies, I'm not just coming after you. It just pisses me off that they're the ones that the general public goes after, but then they don't know how to navigate the transaction, and that's where we earn our money. Anybody could write an offer, and a monkey could write our damn offers. It's fill in the blank. But if you don't know how to navigate when things get ugly, you don't know what you're doing.
Versus interpreting an offer versus negotiating.
You could regurgitate everything that you've heard on the internet and look smart. If you can't navigate and get to closing with as few casualties as possible, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And you lose thousands of dollars or lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, with that being said, it's you go through all of that. You have multiple offers. You start doing counter offers, all that kind of stuff. gets a little stressful, right? And when things get stressful, one of the things that people like to do is sit down and enjoy a bourbon. So through this conversation,
With that said, he just cut us off, which is probably good because I was heading down a very.
I did have a question for Oscar, but we'll save it. We'll save it till he's we'll save it for now. Because I feel like I had to make him go off on a tangent.
Yeah, well,
And I would too. Good.
yeah,
Hey,
I
listen,
wish he
I'll tell you what. I have a question for Oscar. I'm not going to ask this episode.
Okay.
I'm going to save it for next episode.
so tune.
So tune in because I'm going to ask him something that's probably going to make his head explode, and you're going to see angry cartel Oscar come out
Jesus.
faster than you even know.
And
All
I'm
right.
a really nice guy. If you know me, I'm really super nice.
So pay attention. Wait for the next episode to come out. We'll ask that question.
All right. And on that note, let's go ahead and concisely give our one rock takeaways. All right. I will start it off. I said it a little bit earlier, but I think my one rock takeaway for this topic around buyers and sellers is read between the lines. So make sure that you understand your offer, what you want, how it's going to be portrayed, and do your due diligence in having someone that could help you with that.
One rock takeaway is have a very open line of communication with your agent. I mean, everything. The more he or she knows, the better they're going to be able to perform their job.
I like it. All right, Jameson, challenge.
Hey, I did this last week just fine. Not last week. I wasn't here last week. The week before. I did it just fine.
You say that's right. It was just fun.
No, you did do fine last week because you weren't here.
That's fair. No, mine's easy. As a seller, the highest offer is not necessarily the best offer you should take.
I like it.
That's it.
Stuff. Well, look at that. I'm so
Done.
I mean, I like it. I like it. All right.
got.
All right. So now I'm very interested to hear your rock ratings on Old Grand Dad over here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch around, take another sip here before I give mine.
I could go right now.
Go for it, Oscar. Do it.
I mean, I'm glad that we're giving it a rating after I've had a few. It gets the job done.
Yeah.
It does. Without really having to chug it down. It's easy. It's easy drinking, but it's not enjoyable. This is delicious. No, you could drink it. It's good. It's not great, but for the price and everything, I bring that back into play. It's not a plastic bottle. It's not a jug of bourbon that you're just gonna hate yourself in the morning. It doesn't have a whole lot of flavor profiles. It's kind of like a dry wine at the end. My mouth is kind of dry right now.
Yep.
It doesn't coat. Doesn't give you the creamy mouth feeling.
Brought it back. Yes.
Brought that thing back. It definitely belongs in like a Coke. I probably wouldn't make an old fashioned. I'd probably try to Manhattan out of it. Rock wise, and again, you use the rocks to mellow and open it up. This one would probably just wash it out. So give me like a 6.
I like it. Okay.
It's not horrible.
Yep.
It's a solid 6, man.
I like it. I like it. JMO?
No regrets.
No regrets.
Tatted on the back. No regrets.
No regrets. I mean, I feel like it deserves 2 ratings. One where you don't know the price, and then one where you do know the price.
Understand.
If you don't know the price, I'm at probably like a 7.5.
Okay.
But at $20, 6.
Yeah.
I agree with Oscar. Gets the job done. If I'm having a really bad day,
And I got $20 in my pocket.
I got $20 in my pocket, I'm like,
Boom.
I need to make this. Then I would probably do this.
Yeah.
It's not bad, and I think we're spoiled because of what we've gotten to taste.
Yes.
But if I'm comparing it with what we've tasted, I think a 6 to a 7 is a good rating, and I think $20. I think it's worth $20.
I'm gonna go right there with you guys. I'm definitely gonna give this one a 6.
Yeah.
Specifically just because, again, not a lot of
There's no
complexity.
complexity.
Yeah, not a lot of complexity. So if you are like the connoisseur, you're gonna drink this and be like, okay, it's alcohol. I can drink it.
Yeah, if you're a connoisseur, you're going to appreciate what it is for what the price is.
Exactly. So I think definitely giving it a 6, and then just instructing you guys, put it in a cocktail. This is definitely something that if you just had a long day, you want to sit back, relax, sip on a couple drinks, this is a great way to go. It's not gonna punch you. It's not gonna make you, like, ugh. But you are going to have a little bit of more of enjoyment out of it than going to the standard regular.
It's definitely not a put it in a paper bag and go cry yourself.
No.
Things. But if it's a I'm on business trip, I'm stressed out. Yep. I'm gonna pick something up to have at the back of the hotel, maybe grab a Coke or something and mix it. It definitely it'll get the job done.
I like it
without having like, dude, I just drank McCormick's last night and I feel like shit this morning.
Exactly.
Definitely not this.
Yep.
But it's not like Jameson said. We got spoiled, and that's why we're trying to bring stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reviewing everything equally, not just high-end stuff.
I'll put it this way. Best $20 bottle of bourbon I've ever had.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But for $5 more, I'd buy the Larceny.
All right.
So it's a weeded one. It's less, and that's anyway.
All right,
Yeah,
so
it's a good bourbon.
Home that are still sticking with us.
Yep.
One more time, if you guys want to get a hold of us, got Oscar. Where do they find you on social media?
OscarTheRealtor.com across the board.
Beautiful.
It's TikTok, Facebook. No,
Facebook.
Facebook's a little different, not Facebook. TikTok, Instagram, and I'm trying to just website OscarTheRealtor.com.
Cool.
I'm trying to get a link tree.
Yes.
I'm trying to get with the times.
For me, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at TikTok That Lifting Agent, Instagram The Lifting Agent, and contact us through our Mile High Perspective as well.
Yep.
Which, again, email for you guys down below. Like and subscribe.
Yep.
Follow. Comment. Let us know what you like.
Comment. We check them. I'd like to see what's up.
I'd love to see what you guys think.
Yeah, send us some recommendations.
And is it lift with your knees, agent? Not your pack?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Good form.
Clarify that. Good form. Always have good form. With that said, drink responsibly.
Yes.
Always drink responsibly or irresponsibly if you're drinking a $20 bottle of bourbon.
Nah, dude.
As long as
You're going to get it responsibly if you're drinking this shit.
Fine. RESOTR at themilehighperspective.com if you guys want to email us. And then the phone number again, 303-578-0263. You guys can find me, the Colorado real estate guy, on basically Instagram and TikTok. Facebook's just my name, Jameson Amaros. Love to connect with you guys on there as well.
And if you're bored, coolestguyonearth.com. That's also me.
All right, and on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us for the other episode.
See you guys.
Stay served on the rocks.
I'd cheers, but I drank all.
Cheers.